Around 2019 to 2020, the online art community was going through one of its biggest shakeups. Multiple creators were being exposed, called out, and heavily criticized. Names like Creepshow Art, Shadman, Hopeless Peaches, and Toby Majestic were all caught in waves of controversy. It was a time when audiences started questioning the people they followed and the kind of content being normalized in these spaces. And while all of this was happening, Ben was peacefully uploading videos like this. Now, if you don't know who Benthelooney is, you're about to go down a very disturbing rabbit hole. An animator who built an audience online, but whose work and actions crossed serious lines. He created highly inappropriate content involving underage characters and openly supported other deeply controversial artists within that same space. And the most unsettling part? He never truly disappeared. Currently, he is on YouTube under the name Skeletoons, with around 24,000 subscribers. And while this number is surprisingly low, it's nothing compared to how low his entire online career has been. For those of you who have no idea of his horrible antics, here are some clips of Ben talking about his favorite animated female characters, and also about how he loves women.
Welcome back to Ben's Top 10, and when I was a kid, girls were considered icky. As I've said several times before, I love cartoons. Also, I'm a guy, so I love women. Most of the time, I'm not too picky when it comes to girls. I don't care about looks, it's the character that I care for. But from time to time, my ancestral love of women comes out and I can't help but to drool over good-looking girls. Therefore, I love animated women. Women have been a staple of animation since its creation, and it's the women that usually drive the guy viewers into a cartoon and making them keep coming back for more. Due to me being extremely cartoon and girl crazy, I'm going to do a top 10 list of, in my opinion, the hottest animated women in animation, and I'll do my best to try to maintain my sanity. Hello, nurse! Sorry, I only have one rule for this list. No animals. Well, let's stop talking and start drooling. Here are my top 10 hottest animated women. Number 10. Jenny XJ9 Wakeman from My Life as a Teenage Robot. Jenny is basically the normal teenage girl, except she's mechanical and she kicks alien and bad guy butt. Jenny spends most of her time doing normal teenage girl things, shopping, hanging out with friends, and staring at boys.
He was basically obsessed with drawing literal child characters, and the list of female cartoon characters he consistently fetishized is very long. Characters like Powerpuff Girls, Ami and Yumi, Kraz, Fluttershy, and the list can go on. His old artworks on platforms like Newgrounds and DeviantArt are still very much accessible to the public. And let's just say, it's not something we can even show you here. All we can tell you is that his art gallery is truly filled with some deplorable, disgusting stuff. However, before we get into all of that, let's take a step back and look at where he even came from. According to his Wikitubia page, his real name is Benjamin Eugene Tannehill, and he was born on October 14th, 1992. As far as we're aware, his earliest presence on the internet dates back to around 2008, when he was still 16 years old.
Hey guys, Benthelooney here, or as you folks know me as, Benthelooney. I just want to give you guys a quick update as to what's going to go on in the near future concerning this channel. Well, it's official. I graduated college.
And now that we've finally shown you his face, there's one more thing people love to point out. A lot of viewers have noticed that he bears a pretty strong resemblance to none other than Chris Chan. And we mean, once you see it, it's kind of hard to unsee. In fact, the comparison got so widespread that some of his detractors even started joking, or in some cases genuinely speculating, that he might be some kind of long-lost relative of one of the internet's most infamous degenerates. Now, obviously, there's no real evidence behind that, but the fact that people even entertained that idea kind of shows the kind of reputation he was building for himself online. According to one of his own videos posted on YouTube, he grew up in a quiet neighborhood in Illinois. He's mentioned before that from a very early age, he always wanted to draw, create characters, and entertain people. And because the neighborhood he lived in was small, and he didn't have many friends, he spent most of his time watching cartoons and TV.
I grew up in the country, specifically in Illinois. I'm an only child and lived in a pretty small neighborhood with only about 5 houses total on the street. While I was growing up, I only had 1 or 2 kids in total in the neighborhood who I could play with, and even then, they were busy a lot. So, I spent a lot of time by myself. And while I wanted to break from watching cartoons and Godzilla movies, I found a way to entertain myself. As far back as I can remember, I liked coming up with my own stories with whatever I had at my disposal.
That's when he made a decision, after high school. If he couldn't yet create his own animations, he could at least start by talking about the cartoons he loved, or should we say, hated? And that's how he created his first YouTube channel, Puffyzilla Man 4, which, surprisingly, still exists to this day. If you check the channel description, you'll see it was created back in 2007, and it still has a handful of his early videos. The name itself came from 2 of his biggest obsessions, the anime Hi Hi Puffy Amiyumi and the iconic monster Godzilla. One of the earliest videos on that channel is titled Mecha Godzilla Tribute, and in the beginning, that's pretty much what his content looked like. DVD collections, card collections, tributes to his favorite characters, and general fan content. But over time, his content slowly started to shift. He began experimenting with more review-style videos, and eventually moved into animation-based storytelling. His first ever Ben Rant video came in April 2009, titled Ben Rant, The Disney Vault.
Boy, do I hate the Disney Vault. Why? It's stupid. Why in the heck would you put some of the greatest animated movies ever made into a vault for God knows how long?
And for those who don't know, this is where he really started gaining attention. He built his audience through these Ben Rant videos, where he would passionately, and often aggressively, rant about different cartoon series and characters. The persona he used to deliver these opinions was his animated self, Benthelooney. Now, this isn't unusual. A lot of artists create characters based on their own personalities to express opinions through animation, and at the time, this worked really well for him. If you scroll through his channel from that era, you'll notice he mainly focused on 2 types of videos that were received pretty well, Ben Rants and Ben Salutes.
He started all of these videos with a famous line, "Welcome back to Ben Rants and When I Was a Kid." This way of starting his videos was so popular at the time that some people even compiled all of these statements together into long YouTube videos.
Welcome back to Ben Salutes, and when I was a kid, we had a good excuse for staying indoors. Welcome back to Ben Rants, and when I was a kid, we ate unhealthy foods, and nobody yelled at us for it. Welcome back to Ben Rants, and when I was a kid, politics did not get involved in reality shows. Welcome back to Ben Salutes, and when I was a kid, filmmakers had the secret ingredient to making good films.
The Salute videos included his more positive counterpart character. He also created other characters within this universe, like Nebti Yanul, a distorted version of himself, and Looney T. Ben, a more laid-back, stoner-like version of his persona. And while he has been accused of a lot of things over the course of his online career, this period was still relatively tame for him. However, the first real backlash he received came from the last video he uploaded on his Puffyzilla Man 4 channel in 2011, where he talked about the Looney Tunes show. And if you look at the like to dislike ratio on that video, it tells you a lot about how people felt. And while this video is still up on the channel, you can't really see the dislike numbers because, well, YouTube removed that feature. However, what YouTube did not disable were the comments under the video. According to many viewers, he didn't give the show a fair chance at all. Some argued that he only hated it because it was different from the original Looney Tunes cartoons. But honestly, it wasn't just his opinion that people had a problem with, it was the way he expressed it. He was extremely aggressive, over the top, and at times, outright offensive. At one point, he even said that the show was so bad that he felt like he was being R-worded by the show. Yeah, he actually said that.
Folks, I've never been so angry at one thing before. This certain thing has filled me with so much anger that it literally almost caused me to go mentally insane. It is so bad that I'd rather cause physical harm on myself than watch it again.
And for many people, that was the moment when criticism of Ben started turning into genuine backlash. But, like we said, this was still just the beginning. Because what comes next with Ben is where things start getting a lot more serious. After his video on the Looney Tunes show received heavy backlash, Ben actually disappeared from the internet for a while. And interestingly, it wasn't just because of the criticism. He reportedly couldn't even log back into his account after his computer crashed, losing access to everything. So instead of trying to recover it, he just started over. He created a new channel, the one that would eventually become what we now know as Skeletoons. If you check the channel details, it was created around June 2011, right around the same time his old channel got lost. At first, the channel went through a bit of an identity crisis. He called it Benthelooney, then Puffyzilla Man, and eventually rebranded multiple times over the years. His first upload there was Godzilla Part 2, Benthelooney, which was basically a continuation of content from his old channel. And honestly, for a while, it was just business as usual. He continued making his classic content, Ben Rants, Ben Salutes, Top 10 lists, and even introduced new series like Mini Rants, Neb Rants, and more videos featuring his different personas. But then, in December 2013, things shifted. In a video titled Is This the End?, Ben announced that he was stepping away from his rant content and retiring the character of Ben. According to him, college life and burnout were catching up, and making videos had started to feel more like a chore than something he enjoyed.
Hey guys, Ben Tannehill here. I'm sure you all saw the final review I posted concerning Benthelooney and Friends, and I just want to confirm that, yes, I'm retiring those characters for good. I'm sure this might upset a lot of you, but there are several reasons why it's time to put those characters to rest. Originally, I thought I was going to be able to keep going until the spring of 2014, but my college schedule is going to be chaotic next semester. I'm taking 6 classes, and I just won't have the time to do all the editing that I do when it comes to the Benthelooney and Friends videos.
Now, if you think that was the end of Ben Rant, it really wasn't. Because just a few months later, in April 2014, he brought it back. Not permanently, he called it a brief revival. This revival lasted only a couple of months before he again retired the series in June 2014, this time with a video called Benthelooney's Farewell. From mid-2014 to late 2015, he actually stuck to that decision for once, focusing mostly on animation projects from college. But then, November 2015 came around, and just like that, he returned to reviews again, slowly slipping back into the same style of content, including Ben Rants. This second comeback continued into 2016, before he once again tried to pivot. Around mid-2016, Ben decided to take animation more seriously. He started focusing on storytime animations, which actually did pretty well, especially his McDonald's storytime videos, which ended up becoming some of his most viewed content. He also experimented with a passion project called the Daisy and Dexter Mysteries, which unfortunately didn't really take off. And when that didn't work, he went right back to rants and reviews, but this time more as himself rather than fully leaning into the Benthelooney character. So yeah, by this point, you can probably see a pattern. Leave rant, come back to rant, leave again, come back again, and it's like a cycle he just couldn't escape. He even admitted that he can't make decisions for God's sake. In 2019, he officially brought back Benthelooney in the rant format once again, this time with a slightly different style, focusing more on controversial topics rather than just general cartoon criticism. But even that didn't last long. By March 2020, he retired the character again, saying he wanted to focus on creating his own cartoons instead. And to be fair, he actually tried.
Will that be all? Will that be all? That's a question I've struggled with for so long. Waking up every day and wondering how I'm gonna continue, I started to question my purpose in life and wonder where it all went. Making rant videos well into my late 20s. Is that it? Is that what I busted my nuts off in college for? Heck no. I had a dream to make cartoons, and dagnabbit, that's what I want to do. But I just never got around to it. It was always excuses. Oh, I can't hire voice actors. Oh, I don't have the time. Oh, I can't come up with ideas. Well, it's time for excuses to take a hike. I only have one chance to live my life how I want. Do I just want to blow it talking about other people's stuff? Hell no. I want to make my own stuff.
In April 2020, he launched a series called Alright Cartoons, focusing more on animated shorts. While animation became the main focus, he still couldn't completely let go of rant-style content and would occasionally return to it on the side. Then things got a bit more chaotic. In 2023, he started experimenting with YouTube poops.
At the Olive Garden, come warm up with one of our hearty come, made fresh every day, like our pasta for come, absolutely delicious. Come, soup or salad is free with every come, only at the Olive Garden Italian restaurant. the Olive Garden presents the Ati, layer after layer, more of the delicious, good, fresh love. The lasagna you simply can't get anywhere else. The sensational new minestrone, only at the Olive Garden Italian restaurant.
I love Little Caesar's Crazy Dippers. Always like dipping things. Dip these and
So yeah, it was a downgrade for sure. In 2024, he dropped the alright cartoons and rebranded back to Puffyzilla Man, bringing back some of his older, more edgy style, though slightly toned down. And then in 2025, another rebrand, this time to BJ Holiday. At this point, even the channel itself was probably confused about its identity. He claimed he wanted to return to making videos about cartoons and anime, but most of the content still leaned heavily into controversial, rant-style videos, and drumroll please, NSFW art. And one thing about his rant videos, he hated pretty much everything. He took jabs at popular fandoms all the time. For instance, Twilight.
Not even a decade old, and it's already one of the biggest franchises of all time. The movies that the girls go crazy for and causes the boys to go crazy upon viewing them. I'm of course talking about Twilight. Basically, the books were made to sell sex to girls, and the movies were made to sell sex to girls. How anyone can think to make movies based off these books is beyond me, but here they are!
Family Guy.
Welcome back to Ben Rants, and when I was a kid, copying people was shamed upon. There are a lot of times where I don't understand certain popularities. I never understand why something so bad can be so popular, and that's the case with the subject of today's rant, the ever-popular animated sitcom Family Guy.
So, let's talk about his take on Family Guy, because this is where things start getting a little hypocritical. Ben decided to go all in, not just on the show, but also on its creator, Seth MacFarlane, and the way his rant plays out is pretty predictable. First, he starts off sounding somewhat reasonable, giving a basic, almost neutral description of Family Guy. But then, almost immediately, it turns into a full-on rant about why the show is terrible, and eventually escalates to him straight up calling MacFarlane a talentless hack.
All these shows are being made at the exact same time! Are you kidding me? Seth MacFarlane has the nerve to make 3 shows at the same time? How disrespectful is that to other animators who want to make animated shows?
Now, fair enough, people are allowed to dislike a show, but here's where it gets weird. At the same time, Ben openly enjoyed Drawn Together, a show that is arguably even more crude, offensive, and over the top than Family Guy ever was. So the question is, where exactly is the line? Because it doesn't stop there. In another video, his top 11 dumbest soccer mom moments, Ben actually criticized Sarah Palin for speaking out against a Family Guy episode that made jokes about people with Down syndrome. And his response? It's Family Guy. It's supposed to offend you.
Chris is dating a girl who has Down syndrome. There's one point where the girl says that her mother is the former governor of Alaska. Well, it's a typical unfunny pop culture joke that Family Guy is known for, but I guess it's harmless enough. Well, that's not what Sarah Palin thought. She thought it was a direct attack on her son Trig, who has Down syndrome, and she was trying to speak up for everybody with Down syndrome by saying that the show is cruel and heartless.
So, according to him, offensive humor is fine, unless it's something he personally doesn't like. Because in that same rant era, he gets genuinely upset over Family Guy killing Yogi Bear and Bugs Bunny. Now, that being said, in September 2025, he announced that he would once again focus on making cartoons. A week later, the channel was renamed Skeletoons. New name, same creator, and depending on how you look at it, the same patterns. Now, with all that being said, let's actually get into some of the things he's been criticized for throughout his time on the internet. And we'll start off light before things get a lot more serious. For example, his early avatar, which he made using Microsoft Paint, looked, honestly, kind of hilarious. It was extremely rough, low effort, and became something people constantly made fun of. But to his credit, he eventually improved it and later redesigned his character into a more polished version drawn by Pablo's Corner. Another minor thing that people pointed out a lot was that his videos were very choppy and very poorly edited. During his rant video days, he was also frequently called out for being overly aggressive and at times pretty controversial with his opinions. It wasn't just what he said, it was how he said it.
And also, why in the heck did Vegeta and Bulma get married?
But up until this point, most of the criticism was still relatively minor. That changed in 2016, After leaving animation college, Ben's content took a very noticeable turn. Instead of focusing mainly on reviews and animations, he began producing more NSF artwork. And this is where the real controversy started. A lot of people within the cartoon and online art community took issue with the kind of content he was making, particularly because it often involved characters who, in their original context, are depicted as being underage. On top of that, he was also heavily criticized for defending certain parts of internet culture, including lolicon and shotacon content, and for showing support toward controversial figures like Shadman, who was widely known for creating similar types of artwork. And at this point, the criticism wasn't just about bad takes or aggressive rants anymore. It had escalated into something far more serious and far more uncomfortable for a lot of people watching. Now, another thing about Ben that you all should know is that he was very anti-SJW, and also he was not a feminist, but he later claimed that he became a feminist after watching Captain Marvel. Now, during his old days on the Puffyzilla Man 4 channel, he uploaded this video in April of 2011, where he talked about the hottest female characters, according to him. And you would be really shocked to listen to this, so hear us out. Jenny the Robot from My Life as a Teenage Robot is his first, and he thinks that normal teenage girl stuff to do is shopping, hanging out with friends, and looking at boys.
And bad guy butt. Jenny spends most of her time doing normal teenage girl things, shopping, hanging out with friends, and staring at boys.
And since Jenny is a robot and she walks around half naked, that's why Ben is into her, and he also says that he wishes more girls were allowed to walk around like that.
And staring at boys. The hotness of this character comes from her casual wear. Basically, she walks around half naked all the time, with a bolt representing her belly button. I wish more girls were allowed to walk around like that in real life.
Now, mind you, Jenny was a 5-year-old character. The second on his list was Bulma from Dragon Ball Z, and keeping in mind her age was 16 in the series, this is what Ben had to say about her.
Growing up, the two reasons I watched DBZ was for the action and this blue-haired hot tamale. One of my favorite things about anime is that kids' animes aren't afraid to contain material that would never even be touched upon by cartoons over here, and big example of this would be Bulma. Bulma's character is mostly the stereotypical damsel in distress, but when she's angry, she lets the boys know about it. Her hotness comes from the occasional swimsuit, cleavage, and bathroom footage. What stunk about this was, a lot of the stuff was cut out for when it aired in the US. Thank you very much, American society, and so I didn't get to see a lot of Bulma's hotness. But thanks to the DVDs, I'm seeing both uncut action and hotness of Bulma.
Then there's Stacy from Phineas and Ferb, who is 15 years old. Daphne from Scooby-Doo, and again, this is what Ben had to say about her.
She's basically that person who does absolutely nothing, and I bet she was created to give the teenage boys something to stare at. Her hotness comes from her curves, her pose, and her nice bikini. With pink and purple being my favorite colors, that's definitely a winner.
We mean he's just obsessed with seeing cartoon characters in bikinis, and he doesn't think it's weird or creepy. Then there is Frankie Foster from Foster's Home for Imaginary Friends, and Ben loves her fan art and also obviously focuses on her body and belly button for some reason.
She knows how to kick butt. Her hotness comes from a nice green sweater, ruby purple hair, showing of her belly button, this weird bikini, and being voiced by Greta Lysel. And the fan arts. Oh, the fan arts. She's so hot, she captures the love of a prepubescent boy and an imaginary friend. Dang, that's something.
We mean, what the hell is wrong with this dude? But there is more. Red Hot Riding Hood, Misty from Pokemon, Starfire from Teen Titans, Ariel from The Little Mermaid, and of course, Ami, Yumi, and Julie from Hi Hi Puffy Ami Yumi. And again, a lot of these characters are portrayed as underage. So yeah, Ben was definitely very creepy. And even though he kept saying that there's nothing wrong with liking cartoons, the reality was very different. He was drawing lewd artwork, and he genuinely saw nothing wrong with it. In his opinion, it was just drawings. In his own words, I am tired of getting accused of being a pervert PDF simply because I made nude drawings of cartoon characters. For crying out loud. They're not real. I am not hurting anybody by doing it. If you don't like it, that's fine. But don't go accusing me of being a freak simply because I am an artist. I should be able to draw whatever the hell I want, but no, not in this ultra PC society. Yep, he said it, and wait, there is more. I only made the drawings because, hey, a lot of other artists do it. What's the harm in a few drawings? Apparently, breasts are the most offensive thing on the freaking planet. There are floods going on in Louisiana, and some people are worried about me making a few suggestive drawings. What the hell? So yeah, in his head, it was just drawings, and people should worry about better things in the world. And surprisingly, a lot of Lolicon supporters did rally behind him. He constantly tried to defend his work in every possible way, saying that he was aging up the characters in his art. But the fact remains, he didn't see anything wrong with drawing explicit content of characters that are originally intended for children, and that alone was bad enough. But it doesn't stop there. Ben was also accused multiple times of being racist, and at times even defended those accusations in ways that made things worse. Initially, he was called out on Twitter when someone posted screenshots from one of his older videos, claiming that he had made animations showing violence against black people. However, it was later revealed that those screenshots were actually fake and edited. They were taken from an old video of his titled "Crappy Roommates" and manipulated to look much worse than they were. Here is a side-by-side comparison, showing the edited version versus the real animation, and that specific accusation doesn't hold up. But even then, the situation didn't really end there, because in 2017 he was accused again of being racist, and this time the criticism had much stronger ground. He uploaded a video in January 2017 titled "Are Classic Cartoons Racist?" And in that video, he didn't just discuss the topic, he straight up defended racist elements in old cartoons, including minstrel shows. For those who don't know, minstrel shows were a 19th century American form of entertainment, where white performers used blackface to mock and stereotype black people through comedy, music, and dance. And instead of criticizing that history, Ben downplayed it. He even went on to say that the only people who found classic cartoons racist were privileged, because he personally didn't see anything wrong with them.
Oh, come on! Being a fan of classic cartoons, I've been called out by a few of my peers on a couple of occasions. They would ask me what kind of cartoons I liked, and I would mention Looney Tunes, and they would ask, "You mean the racist kind?" Sometimes I would mention Tom and Jerry, and people would be like, "You mean the cartoons with that racist black lady in them?" I grew up with these cartoons as a kid, and it took me a while to realize that for some reason, I was supposed to feel white guilt towards them. There are several cartoons from back then that featured ethnic stereotypes that have rarely or never aired on TV. And with a new topic emerging of how easy people are to offend nowadays, I must ask, are classic cartoons racist? Of course, this is coming from the perspective of a redneck who grew up on these cartoons. I say, heck no. I'll get to why in a little bit. The only way I see these cartoons as being offensive is if you are a privileged and sheltered child who had no idea racism existed. Of course, another reason for keeping these cartoons locked away is because they could be impressionable on little kids.
So yeah, people immediately called him out, not just for the take itself, but for the hypocrisy and the lack of awareness in what he was saying, and this led to him being heavily criticized by another creator in the same space, Solbrotha number 3, also known as SBN3. Now, SBN3 is known for creating the indie game class of 2009, and at the time, he was very vocal about calling out creators he believed were being racist. And when it came to Ben, he did not hold back. The two went back and forth quite a lot, mostly online, and SBN3 was pretty consistently on Ben's case over these issues. And Ben's responses? Honestly, they were pretty bizarre. He tried to prove that he is not racist by saying that his favorite rapper is Busta Rhymes, who is black. Hence, Ben is not racist. But at the time, not everyone paid full attention to this situation, partly because SBN3 had a reputation for calling people out very aggressively, and also because there were other controversies happening around him too, including issues involving one of his collaborators. So in the middle of all that noise, Ben's situation didn't fully blow up the way it probably could have. But looking back now, this was another major red flag. Basically, over time, Ben's content just kept getting more and more questionable. It wasn't just one thing, it was a pattern. He started uploading videos openly talking about why he draws lewd art and telling people not to judge him for it. And by this point, you already know the kind of content he was making.
Hey folks, Benthelooney here. Those of you who have followed me for the longest time have been presented with this image of a good old country boy who is golly gee innocent, that he didn't even want to swear in his own videos, always drank chocolate milk, and the only thing he worried about was what cartoons and movies to watch. Now, what would you think if I told you I like to draw those same bodies having intercourse with each other? Oh my. Not so golly gee innocent anymore now, am I? I think it's time a lot of you got to hear a side of me that I hid from my online persona for the longest time. As far back as I can remember, to my puberty years, I've always been fascinated by the human body and sexual media. Growing up in a strong Christian household, with balls bluer than Violet Beauregard after a trip to the chocolate factory, I wasn't allowed to look at any pictures that could be taken sexually. I can remember one instance when my mother gave me a stern talking to when she caught me just doing a Google search of women in bikinis.
But one specific thing that people really took issue with was his promotion and defense of Shotokan and similar content. He said that he is just fascinated by human bodies, but drawing underage girls and boys is not at all what we call appreciating human anatomy. And that's where things crossed the line for a lot of viewers. He even fixated on certain characters, like this one, Elliot, which just made people even more uncomfortable when you look at the context of everything else he was doing. And then there was the presentation. For a period of time, he was literally making videos using his Ben avatar, completely naked, just doing voiceovers like that. Yeah, that actually happened.
I don't usually make videos like this, but 2017 was a year with so many great movies that I decided to make a quick list talking about my favorites from last year. Normally this would be a top 12 list.
He eventually stopped doing that and put the clothes back on, but the fact that it happened at all says a lot. On top of that, he also drew self-portraits and nude artwork of himself. A lot of this has since been deleted, but nothing on the internet really disappears. People have archived a huge amount of his old content, and just when you think it can't get any more bizarre, he even made a video analyzing artwork made by Adolf Hitler.
Happy Easter, everybody! And as my present to you, I'm going to bring back my critically acclaimed Artist Spotlight series. And today, we have a very obscure artist all the way from Austria in the early 1900s, whose art has been lost to time. Let me present to you the wonderful artwork of Adolf Hitler. Like all good artists, Hitler started out from humble beginnings, copying the popular style at the time, but eventually branched out and found his groove.
But even with all of that, somehow, this still wasn't the worst part, because the most serious criticism came from the fact that he chose to support whom he did. And yes, we're talking about Shadbase or Shadman. Now, we have already mentioned Shadman multiple times in this video, and while we really don't want to get into all the horrible stuff he has done, we think we need to give people a little context for those who don't know who he is and why supporting him was the lowest low for Ben. Now, Shadman is widely known online for creating extremely controversial and offensive artwork, including content that has been heavily criticized across the internet for years. His work has repeatedly sparked backlash, not just for being edgy, but for crossing into areas that many people consider completely unacceptable. So, a quick rundown, he had beef with Keemstar, so he said that would draw Keem's 7-year-old daughter giving a BJ to Trump if Trump won the elections. He didn't only draw child P, but he also made lewd images inspired by real-life children and actors, such as Emma Watson, Millie Bobby Brown, and the kid from the Logan movie, Daphne Keene. He has even said some really horrible things about underage Daphne Keene. And in 2017, when a lot of people were actively speaking out against Shadman, Ben did the exact opposite. He supported him. In his Artist Spotlight series, Ben described Shadman as a decent human being and praised his work, while very conveniently ignoring all of the major controversies surrounding him.
Who not only defends himself well, but he manages to convince me differently regarding his work. He said some things that make so much sense that I can't even do what he says justice. I'm just gonna show you.
He didn't address the backlash. He didn't acknowledge the concerns people had. To him, Shadman was just a good artist. And that decision, more than anything else, is what caused a lot of people to completely turn on Ben. Because at that point, it wasn't just about his own content anymore, it was about the kind of people he was willing to stand behind. Overall, he fully supported Shadman's drawings, even the very disgusting one of Lieutenant Corbis sucking on a microphone. By the way, for those of you who don't know, Lieutenant Corbis was a literal child creator on YouTube. But according to Ben, there was nothing wrong with the image Shadman drew because the girl was fully clothed in the picture and there were no body parts showing. And guess what? According to Ben, sucking on a microphone is not sexual at all. Well, at this point, we don't really need to elaborate much more. Once Ben chose to support Shadman, his name became permanently linked with him. And honestly, not without reason. Because after everything we've seen so far, it's not surprising that people started putting them in the same category. However, even years later, Ben continued to come back online, asking people to just leave him alone. For example, in May 2025, he uploaded a video titled, "Can I Move On Please?" He uploaded this video after Jormy made a 50-minute long documentary on him. And sure, moving on is something anyone should be allowed to do. But the problem is, his actions didn't really change. A lot of his recent content also includes weird, explicit undertones. Even after a sort of apology back in 2020, where he said he would separate his content and make a new account for his NSFW artwork, he still continued creating the same kind of material.
First of all, I should have done a better job of distinguishing my not safe for work material from my main YouTube. I shouldn't have kept it linked on my YouTube for so long, and people, maybe even some kids, stumbling upon my artwork they might not have wanted to see. If any of y'all ever clicked on my Twitter and saw some artwork you felt disgusted by.
And that's where people have an issue, because at the end of the day, people aren't just criticizing him for drawings, it's what those drawings involve. Creating explicit content of characters that are portrayed as underage is something a lot of people find deeply uncomfortable and unacceptable. These are characters originally meant for younger audiences, and turning them into that kind of content completely goes against that purpose. And that's why the criticism hasn't gone away. At the end of the day, people like Ben in the art community really need to understand that drawing and selling underage NSFW art is child P, and there is no way about it. With this, we would like to end today's video. If you liked the video, then comment down below and let us know what do you think about this.